All right, welcome to My Line of Work. Here we dive deep into the world of work, what people do, why they do it, and how they got there. From dream jobs to unexpected paths, every story matters and every career has a story worth sharing. Today, our special guest is Joshua de los Santos. Thank
Hey,
you so
Louis.
much
Thank you
for
for having
coming,
me.
man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, go ahead and tell everybody what you do.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Joshua de los Santos. I am a realtor in San Antonio, Texas. My wife and I got into real estate back in 2016. Since then, we started flipping homes. Actually, that's how we originally got into real estate.
Oh, okay.
And we kind of transferred over to just like what we call retail real estate, where we help owner occupants.
Okay.
We've been doing that wholly or only helping owner occupants since 2018, 2019, and we love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. How was the flipping?
So I'll tell you how we got into flipping.
Yeah.
So we originally moved to San Antonio back in 2016 from Corpus Christi. We were both retail store managers, and we came over to San Antonio. We wanted to get out of Corpus, looking for something different, more opportunity.
Okay.
And while we were here, it seemed like there was like a real estate like just boom going on, and we kind of like had our pulse on seeing like real estate. We were always on Zillow, Realtor.com. We were always watching HGTV, and they kind of glamorized the whole home flipping business.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Stephanie, I said, "Man, like that looks like something that I could do relatively. It seems relatively easy, or at least that's how they make it seem on TV." And so we talked about it for like 4 to 6 months of like, okay, what would it look like? What would it look like if I kept working where I was working? And we're trying to flip homes. Would it even be worth it, or should we just jump in? Essentially, leave the work I was at, and just start flipping homes.
Okay.
And we made the decision. We made the decision to make that move.
Okay.
And purchased my first home flip. I want to say in middle of 2016, and it was a huge learning curve. Like I think I maybe made $3,000 off the whole flip.
Really? Wow.
Between buying the home, the renovation cost, the selling cost, I think I made like $3,000.
Wow.
But in hindsight, I'm like, you know what? I didn't lose any money.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy. So I was able to learn on the job.
Learned a lot,
And I made $3,000.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad. Since then, or from that point, I started purchasing more homes, flipping more homes. I think at the height, we were flipping anywhere from 5 to 7 homes at any given time. And I only did it for 2.5 years. So we ramped up really quickly.
Yeah.
In flipping homes, that's when I started to see how much the realtor was making on the purchase and the sell whenever she would help me purchase and sell. I was like, maybe I should just get my license. And that's how I ended up getting my real estate license.
Yeah. Very cool. And from what I know, that's a very short process. Is that correct?
To get your real estate license?
Yeah,
it is. So getting the license is really the easy part.
Okay.
There's a couple schools you can go to. I know the San Antonio Board of Realtors. They offer what they call qualifying education classes. And there's also Champion School of Real Estate. That's kind of like the big school here in Texas.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a total of there's like 8, I don't know. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it's 18 qualifying hours or somewhere in that range. And you can knock it off. You can knock it out in 2 to 3 weeks if you really wanted to.
Wow.
It's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy to get your real estate license. The barrier for entry is very low.
Yeah.
Very low. Yeah. The hardest part, I would say the hardest part being a realtor is getting clients.
Yeah.
Like getting the license is the easy part. Yeah. Finding clients and finding somebody that you can help either buy or sell, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I think there's a statistic that's out there that says every person knows anywhere from 6 to 8 realtors.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a competitive market.
Very competitive. Yeah, absolutely.
So 2016, you transitioned into real estate, being a realtor.
Yeah.
And your wife and I did it together?
So not originally. So originally, so I got my license. Well, I started by flipping homes. I did that for about 6 months before I decided to get my real estate license.
Okay.
So relatively quickly, I got my license. I've been licensed since 2017.
Okay.
I was flipping homes and helping people buy and sell real estate on my own to the end of 2018. And that's when my wife, Stephanie, decided to get her license as well.
Okay.
Yep. So she came on board fully in 2019, and her coming on board really transformed our business. Like it really went from me doing mediocre in real estate to when she came on board, really catapulting herself. She has a great personality. She's everything that I'm not, right? And then more.
Yeah.
So she really helped grow our business.
Very cool. I'm gonna ask you to scoot your mic up a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, man. Wives are a wonderful resource.
Yeah, absolutely.
My wife is wonderful in the business that we do. And yeah, the things that I suck at, selling, closing, she's just awesome at that. Okay, so you completely dropped the flipping, or did you transition, or how did that work?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit more story, more in depth. So like I was saying, at the height of our home flipping business, we had anywhere from 5, maybe 6 flips going at one time, and we were getting a decent amount of return. I guess it was not just return, but exposure. Exposure. At one point, the San Antonio Express News, I don't know how maybe it was from what I was posting on Instagram. They saw one of our posts. A reporter reached out to us, and he was like, "Hey, I saw like one of the homes you flipped. I thought it was really cool. Can I do a story on you?" And so they did a story. The San Antonio Express News did a story on one of the homes we flipped close to downtown, and because of that, a producer for HGTV happened to see that article in the San Antonio Express News, and then they reached out to us. This was at the beginning of 2019, and we ended up making it through a few rounds of interviews because let me backtrack. They reached out to us, let us know that they were looking to produce a pilot in the South Texas area, show. So we ended up signing a 1-year contract with them, and we made it through a couple rounds of interviews, but they ultimately didn't choose us. Okay. So while we were doing that, we were still trying to help people just buy and sell real estate, and we started realizing that the return on our investment in the home flipping business was, although it was okay, there was just a long, I guess what we call like a sales cycle. Okay. So buy the house, do the home flip, and then we have to sell it. In an ideal world, or in a perfect scenario, it could take us 6 to 9 months. So for us, that's a long sales cycle. And we realized, like, you know what, for the ROI that we're getting, although it's okay, that sales cycle is longer than we want. So we slowly started to transition out of home flipping and just solely working on helping people buy and sell real estate. Because it's a shorter sales cycle. Okay. Very cool. So when you started by yourself, what did that look like? Kicking off into real estate? Yeah. So when I first got my license, and I was still flipping homes by myself, when I first got my license, I slowly, people, when I was flipping the homes, would kind of just trickle in, and they would see that we were flipping a home. I would have a conversation with them, and that's how I would kind of I started to get clients. Just from people kind of walking up and seeing what was going on with the home. I also knew that I wanted to grow the retail side of our business. So just like the realtor side of our business. So I knew that I needed to get a few different lead sources. I knew that I needed to get different lead sources. So what I started to do is I started to look in San Antonio, like, who are the top realtors in San Antonio? Right? What are they doing? What does their online presence look like? How are they getting clients? I started realizing that there's a few different CRMs that they would use, which is a client relations manager. They had a certain type of website. I knew that some of them were getting leads from Realtor.com, from Zillow. So I said, okay, if this is what the top people are doing, I should probably just do the same, because it seems like it's working for them. So I slowly started to get leads from Realtor.com, from Zillow, from Trulia, and that's how we started to slowly build up our regular realtor or retail side of real estate. And then are any of those, all of those, some of those, like, you have to pay for those leads? Yeah, you do. Yeah. Okay. And they can get very costly. So just to give you an example, we found out that the best ROI when it came to online leads, at least for us, was, or still probably is, Zillow.
Okay.
Zillow is real estate. So I think there's a statistic that Zillow is very proud of, and it's that in Google and on all major like search platforms like Google or Bing or the word Zillow is searched more than real estate, and I think that's because people associate real estate with Zillow, and they almost associate Zillow more so with real estate than even the word real estate, if that makes sense.
Wow. Kind of like Kleenex.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually a brand that you're saying, but it you know, no one says tissue.
Right. Yeah. You
just pass me a Kleenex.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So Zillow has done a really amazing job in positioning themselves and marketing themselves in a manner that when you think of real estate, you automatically think Zillow.
Okay.
So going back to your question about the cost. So whenever we first started buying leads from Zillow, essentially a lead would cost, if I had to break it down in a cost per lead, let's just hypothetically say it would be like $75 to $100 per lead.
Yeah.
Right now, depending on the zip code that you're in, it could range. So at the most we were ever spending on Zillow, we were spending close to $10,000 a month on leads, and we would get maybe 21 leads.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
It's expensive, but they're considered high intent, right? Yeah. So by the time Zillow sells the lead to you, they've already made it through this sales funnel, and the likelihood of them purchasing something,
they're like ready to buy,
is high, right? No, they're not all like that. You sometimes get ones that are, you occasionally you get a lead that it's really just a neighbor calling about a house that they think is overpriced in their neighborhood, and they're upset about the price. So we've had stuff like that happen.
Really?
So it's a mixed bag, right? You're trying to convert a certain percentage. You can't convert all of them.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you first started, let's talk about that. So you first started, and you're like, okay, I'm going to copy the top performers, and so you kind of took their strategies. What is your finding leads now? You mentioned Zillow, but what other techniques are there out there?
Yeah.
Or what are you doing now that you didn't do when you were starting off?
Yeah, good question. And well, let me just say one other thing that we did, or whenever we first started off, because we weren't spending a ton of money on Zillow leads or Realtor.com leads. So when we first decided that we wanted to go fully into like a retail real estate business, and we stopped flipping homes, we knew that we needed some sort of guidance on how to grow our business.
Okay.
So we hired a few different real estate coaches. The first real estate coach we ever hired said, you're going to pay for a lead one way or another. You can either pay for a lead by essentially paying with your time, and it's a low money cost, or you can spend less time and higher money cost, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we didn't have a ton of money, although we had some saved up. So we're like, okay, well, we don't want to just buy a ton of leads. Let's kind of diversify how we get our leads.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we would do is we would hold open houses, and we, for like half a year straight, would do 4 open houses every weekend.
Oh, wow.
And 4 different properties.
Okay.
So it would be like around noon on Saturday from 11 to maybe 2, we would hold an open house at one house. And then we'd go to another house on a different side of town and hold an open house from either 4 to 6 or 4 to 7. We did that on Saturday and on Sunday for like 6 months straight.
Wow. And how are you getting these houses and able to host an open house?
Yeah.
Are these your properties that you're listed?
Some were.
Okay.
Some were. Most weren't. Most were other homes that were listed by other agents in the brokerage that we were at.
Oh.
Or, I mean, look, at the end of the day, most agents would, even if I were to call another agent in another brokerage and ask to hold an open house, they'd probably be really happy for someone to hold an open house at their home. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it just gets more exposure. More people walking through the home, the higher the probability of you getting a contract. So, that happens still a lot.
And that doesn't take away from their...
No, not at all. I mean, it depends on
so they're representing the list, the
correct
seller.
Yeah, I mean,
and then when you host the open house, you're trying to attract a buyer?
Capture a buyer. Yeah, that's exactly right. Capture a buyer, capture leads. So, in our experience, the likelihood of somebody walking through the door at an open house and buying that house is very low. Does it happen? On a rare occasion, it does. but it's extremely rare that they buy that house.
Yeah.
Usually the reason for holding an open house, if you're not the listing agent, is because you're trying to capture leads.
Yeah, because they're looking for a house.
That's exactly
It
right.
may not be that one, but
That's exactly
you can
right.
build that relationship.
Yep. And so one of the things that Stephanie and I would do, because there were two of us at an open house, is, so let's say we had a family trickle through to the open house, and we're talking to them. It seems like they're ready to start their home search. What we would do, if we knew that the house that they were looking at was not the right fit, or maybe they just weren't feeling it.
Yeah.
Right then and there, we would ask them, okay, are you working with anybody? And if they said, no, we haven't, signed any agreements with another realtor yet, at that point, we would offer to show them more homes that day, because we knew they were already out.
Yeah.
So we would immediately pull up our MLS on our phone and just say, hey, look, there's within a 1 mile radius, here are these other homes that are for sale. Do you like any of those? Would you guys go take a look?
Yeah.
Smart. And then, so I would either go and show them, or Stephanie would go and show them, and her or I would stay back at the open house to finish the open house.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Strength in numbers.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And, it helps to have a partner who's on board, right?
Yeah.
Like, who is just as eager, who is just as motivated to grow your business, contribute to the household. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
That having a supportive partner really makes a world of difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen that for sure. Okay, so starting out, coach, a real estate coach.
Yes, and I do know some brokerages offer coaching.
Oh, okay.
The one we were at, although they did help, they didn't. What I wanted to do was, I wanted to scale my business as quickly as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And I mean, some people scale their business significantly faster and at a larger scale than I did.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to go from essentially doing no sales, or I did 12 sales my first year, and that's because I was also flipping 5 or 6 homes, right?
Okay.
So I knew that I wanted to go from 12 sales to 50 sales to 70 sales a year.
Yeah.
So we just figured, okay, what are the things we need to do to get our business to 70 sales a year as fast as possible?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, although the brokerage we were at provided a lot of great insight on how to be a realtor, they never showed us how to get to 70 or 80 home sales.
Okay.
So we had to essentially outsource that guidance.
Okay.
By hiring a coach.
Yeah. And then, so now, are there things you mentioned ROI, are there lead generating areas where you're like, you know what, we're going to focus on this, and we're going to, I assume you don't have a coach anymore.
No. You know what? So I do think it's a good idea to have a coach at all points of your business, right? Because so if you look at top athletes, they always have a coach, even if they're at the top,
Trainers,
right? If just because they're the best doesn't mean they're like, okay, well, I'm the best now, I know everything. They still have a coach.
That's
right. So we figure okay, we always need to have a coach, someone at least holding us accountable and telling us what we do wrong. Even if we know we're doing it wrong, sometimes it's good to hear somebody else tell you, like, hey, wake up, So we have a mentor right now. We do have a mentor. So for our business right now, our business has changed quite a bit. We've been in the real estate game now, or at least I have, for almost a decade. Running out and showing homes in a frenzy does get tiring, and it does get old. We just had a baby boy, so we just started our family, and we're wanting to change our business. We definitely want to go to more of a referral-based business. So now Stephanie and I have a database of past clients, anywhere from 350 to 400 past clients that we can market to them, and we can prospect them to see if they have a referral. Having somebody refer you a client is I don't want to say easier, but it's a different
it saves
process.
Time, saves money.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas when you're getting a lead from Zillow, for example, the lead comes through from Zillow. They don't know you. You don't know them. You're going to meet them for the first time at a home. You have no idea what their background is. At that home, you have to learn everything about them, learn about their financial status, get them to trust you. You have 30 to 45 minutes to build this rapport, and hopefully they decide to work with you. Now, we've become really good at that because we were forced to have to learn to do that. We just don't want to have to do that anymore. So to answer your question, we're switching our business It's more referral based. And our plan, and it was just starting this year actually. Yeah. Stephanie and I were having the conversation. Our plan is to work with different we'd like to partner with different professional organizations, like a police organization, firefighters, teachers, medical professionals, military veterans, and see if there's anything we can do to cater events, sponsor events, and just essentially be their real estate partner when somebody has a question. So we want to build those relationships.
Yeah. That's good.
It takes time. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
It takes time to do that. And then, it takes a certain level of experience for those organizations to allow you in. Does that make sense? Because as a new realtor, I would not have the confidence to go and try to be part of those organizations because there's so much that I don't know. Yeah. And now that I have almost 400 home sales under my belt, I feel like I've seen a lot. I know a lot, although I don't know everything and I haven't seen everything. But I at least feel like I have the confidence to go to these organizations and foster these relationships.
Yeah. And answer the questions that they may have.
That's exactly right.
Because 400 is a lot of homes.
It is, yeah.
A friend of mine came on an inspection with me actually this morning, and he asked me, how many homes did it take before you felt like like, okay, like I kind of know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I say kind of because I'm still learning.
Always.
And I was like, man, I don't know, like 30 to 50 before I'm like, okay, I think I can do this on my own, right? Like, I had the blessing of working for a company before I went out on my own. So that was, like you mentioned, I had a mentor. I had someone that trained me, and we would do kind of, I don't know if you know what the release of responsibility model is in teaching. Basically, I shadowed him, and then little by little, I started, inspecting things, and then
that's cool.
That to say, your mentor now, how does he have any experience in the transition you're wanting to make, as far as like, or what can he give you as far as making that transition to the referrals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's a she.
Oh, okay.
But no, it's okay. I don't think she does.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will tell you, I'm getting my guidance in this scenario from a family member of mine. So my brother, actually.
Okay.
So my brother has a company in South Texas, and essentially they write and administer federal and state grants to local municipalities.
Okay.
So this is what that looks like. Let's say hypothetically, San Antonio has a capital improvement they're looking to make, and they don't have the money in their budget to do so.
Yeah.
But it will improve the standard of living for the citizens of San Antonio. So what they do is he may go to the state of Texas, because the state of Texas usually has a certain amount of money allocated to capital improvements. Same with the federal government.
Yeah.
And they go and apply for these grants.
Okay.
And these grants, obtaining these grants is an extremely competitive process.
Yeah.
Not only do you know how to write the grants, you have to have you have to have a process on how to administer them, but there's a lot of politicking involved, with ensuring that your municipality is chosen.
Okay.
So, where he gets a lot of his clients is at these organizations, like these professional organizations, because they themselves too also need grants for different types of projects that they need.
Yeah.
And so what I've been asking him is, how do you essentially get a foot into the door of these organizations so that you can start fostering a relationship? What are the things that they need? What are the problems they need solved? So that potentially, if I know what problems they have, maybe I can be a resource on how to solve them. Yeah. And if I am, well, then maybe they can keep me around for a little while.
Yeah.
And then maybe I get a lead here or there. Yeah. So that's the idea.
Okay. Very cool. I like that.
It's a different process, right?
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do with our business now is we're really trying to create longevity in our business.
Yeah.
We're trying to create longevity in our business. We're not, we want to foster a relationship where we can get a somewhat consistent flow of leads in business, rather than chasing, a lead, a name and a number from an online lead source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in my line of business, you can either work for yourself or you can work for a company.
Yeah.
When I become a real estate agent, I've heard you've said the word broker earlier.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that there are some brokers that offer training. Okay. So if I don't work for myself,
Yes.
what does that look like working for someone else?
Yeah. So
are those the only two options?
Good questions. So, the first thing that happens whenever you get your real estate license is you need to have a broker sponsor you. So you will have to be under some sort of brokerage.
Okay.
The way realtors are paid is you're paid 1099. So technically you're not an employee.
Yeah.
You just have a broker that's sponsoring your licensure.
Mm-hmm.
After so many transactions, if you wanted to, you could apply to get your own broker's license so that you can go and then start your own real estate company. And it's just you can do on your own.
Yeah.
And you have no oversight. I mean, other than the state of Texas that holds your license, you essentially wouldn't have any oversight.
Cool.
So that's one avenue. Getting a real estate license, you can also do property management. If you choose to, maybe you want to help with property management, you can also go into commercial real estate. Okay. I personally don't know a whole lot about commercial real estate. I do know it's a completely different ballgame. The contract process is different. The clients are different. But to answer your question, you would when you first get a license need to be under a broker to be able to transact. And finding a brokerage that provides a good amount of new agent training, I think, is very important because in real estate, there's a lot of ways to get yourself sued. Because you're dealing with contracts. Being able to properly explain the contracts, or even have a broker that can help you explain those things when you're just starting off, I think is super important.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then whenever, is it like a standard interview, or how is that connection made? Now I have my license. Do I just start emailing people? Do I just start calling people? What does that look like?
That's a good idea. That could be, that's a good option.
Yeah.
So usually when you're getting a real estate license, like let's say you go to Champion School of Real Estate. Yeah. Let's say you go in person. Usually during the lunch break, there are going to be brokers that come in that are going to try to get you to go to their brokerage once you get your license. Yeah. There are some brokers in San Antonio, and I'm sure all over the US, that they really focus on new agents. So they're as soon as you get your license, even if it's not a broker that you met in person, you're going to get an email from our broker saying, "Hey, I saw you just received your real estate license. Yeah. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to interview you." And it's as simple as that, right?
Yeah. And do they get a cut?
They will. Yeah, every broker, as long as you're with a broker, they're always going to get a cut of your deal. Okay. Now, each broker might have a different, what we call split. Meaning, let's say you have a commission for $5,000, they may get a percentage of that. Okay. And each broker is going to structure their splits differently, whether or not you procured a lead or a sale on your own, or if they helped you
through them.
Exactly.
So what are some good questions to ask a brokerage that I'm looking to work under? So splits, is that an appropriate question? Like, what are your splits?
You have to know, right? Yeah. So let's say you're a new agent, and we've in my real estate career, I want to say I've helped maybe 4 or 5 of my past clients get their real estate license.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I think, for the most part, the majority of them, they're in real estate now and they're enjoying it.
Oh, nice.
So what I've coached them on is, when you talk to a brokerage, ask them, what kind of new agent training do you provide? Okay. Because although you've just gone through the real estate school, there's so much you don't know, and there's so much you're going to learn once you're in the field. Yeah. Ask them what their new agent training looks like. Ask them what their splits are. Okay. Ask them if they have splits that cap. Ask them if they provide leads. And I would say, also ask them if there's any opportunity for a different type of growth in their brokerage. I think the biggest thing, because a lot of these brokerages, the larger ones that are looking for new agents, for the most part, their new agent training is decent. Yeah. Right. I would say the best thing is make sure that whatever brokerage you talk to, make sure you just align with their culture, because every culture at a brokerage is going to be different. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That would be the advice. That is the advice that I give.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. And then, so do you now have your broker's license?
I don't. No, I don't know. I've thought about getting it, but I one haven't had the excuse me. I haven't had the time.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a while. There's a lot of classes that you need to go to. There's a certain amount of transactions that you need to hit before you can get your broker's license.
Yeah.
And just the classes itself, I just honestly haven't had time to do it. Although it is something I want to do in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Very cool. No, you're good. Okay, so let's go back to the lead thing. So you copied the prime performers.
Yeah.
Now you kind of have the way you generate leads. But now you mentioned you want to transition your business to more referrals.
Exactly.
So let's say you're starting over, Joshua, day one. What would you do now? As far as like, okay, I'm new and I want to generate leads. What would you focus on?
Yeah. So I think I would still do open houses.
Okay.
I think open houses are a really good way to meet people. People love to look at homes on the weekends. So I definitely would continue to hold open houses. I would still look for online lead sources.
Okay.
I know a lot of agents do social media, and I think social media can be a really good lead source. Although not the intent? Well, yeah, the intent is a little bit lower. They're not quite as high intent.
Yeah.
So I would do a combination of open houses every weekend. I would use social media to promote not only myself, but other homes, like property tours.
Okay.
And I might even reach out to new home builders like Lennar, D.R. Horton, Raj Coleman, and I would ask them if there's any way that I could hold open houses in their inventory homes. That way, whenever someone wants to come look at them who's unrepresented, you're already there.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do if I was looking to spend little to no money.
Yeah.
If I had a little bit to spend, I would still try to use Zillow. I would try to use Realtor, because at the end of the day, people are using those home search sites to look at homes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I go.
Yeah.
Anytime I need anything, Zillow.
Right? Yeah. It's like the first place, right?
Yeah.
It becomes like a habit. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't change a whole lot of what I did, to be honest with you.
Very cool.
You know, there are some realtors who went straight into a referral-based business, and they're very successful with that.
Okay.
I think if I was looking for a way to generate home sales and I wasn't so concerned with the amount of home sales, I would probably try also just like a referral base, working on my sphere of influence and trying to get clients from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's got to be hard. Because typically people buy a house and they live in it for 30 years.
Exactly.
And so it's hard to, like, I'm thinking about my friends, the last one that bought a house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a couple of years.
It's exactly right.
And so
it is tough, right? So you almost have to have like a massive sphere to get a decent amount of home sales. Yeah. Otherwise, you need to find a way to meet people you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get in front of as many people as possible and talk to as many people as possible about real estate. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. But the good thing about referrals is it comes with, like you mentioned earlier about the rapport. There's less rapport building. There's already a level of trust.
They already trust you. Yeah.
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 And so it's I hope you're able to successfully.
I think so. I think we will. I know it's going to take some time. I know it's going to take time, but I also think it's also going to end up giving us a lot of time back.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's good.
I really, I was, like I said, my wife and I, Stephanie, we're having the conversation. And now that we have a little one, I really want to get as much time back as possible and increase the compensation of the time that we spend.
Yeah.
And what that looks like is, holding events with, like I said, different professional organizations. We've already created a list of organizations that we want to reach out to. Yeah. And it's going to be a cold call, right? We're essentially going to call them and say, hey, this is who we are. Yeah. This is what we do. I don't know if anybody in your organization can benefit from us, but next time you have an organization where you need sponsorship, we would love to be there.
Yeah.
And just offer our help.
I've heard that term, cold call. Can you kind of explain for those that don't know what cold calling is?
Yeah. So a cold call, that's like, I mean, that's like me calling you. Like, you have no intent of buying a house, right? Right now. And that's like me just calling you out of the blue and saying, hey, my name is Joshua. I want to help you buy a house. Right? That's a completely cold call. Like, you've showed no intent of wanting to buy a house, but I'm still calling you anyway to strike a conversation. Those cold calling leads are going to be the lowest converting. That's because you have no idea if they're ready or not. So leads can be cold, warm, or hot, right? A warm lead is somebody who's expressed interest. They've expressed interest and they're like, hey, it's like a raised hand in the marketplace saying, you know what? I'm kind of interested and I want some more information. Well, that's a warm lead. A hot lead is, hey, I'm ready now. Like, I've made the decision that I want to purchase or I want to sell. I need somebody help me. The hot leads are going to be usually the most expensive if you're paying for them. Yeah. And the most competitive to get.
I like that. Okay, so outside of open houses and contracts, what does a typical day look like for you? Well, I mean, there's probably not a typical day, but what all does I share this with a lot of my guests. One of the first persons I interviewed was a firefighter, and I asked him, like, so what percentage of your job is actually fighting fires? And he was like, probably about 20%. Like a very low, Right. So what do real estate agents do? Yeah,
that's a good question. So what do you guys do? That's hilarious. That's it's been the question a lot of people have been asking the last year. It's been like a big issue. What do you guys even do? So I think, this is what we usually try to have our day look like. And when I say we, I'm talking about my wife and I. So we try to make it so that we wake up in the morning, and usually when we clock into work, we're prospecting. We're prospecting for people who have shown intent that they would like to buy or sell. Prospecting can also mean we're calling our past clients, and we don't try to call our past clients and just say like, hey, this is Joshua. I sold you a house 2 years ago. Do you want to sell it again? Or do you know somebody who might want to? No, it's a call to them saying like, well, maybe you sold your house 2 years ago. I wanted to see how everything is going in your home. Have you made any improvements? Would you like a market update to see if your value has increased or decreased? Are there any repairs that you need made? And do you need a referral? How can we assist you in your current situation? Not that we're trying to get you out of it, but what can we do to help out with anything that's going on in the home now? Sometimes there's nothing we need, and that's fine. But at least that allows us to have a conversation with them. At the end of that call or towards the end of that call, we always ask for a referral. We try to, right? So really the main reason for that call is not to get that client to buy or sell. It's for them to refer us somebody else. So it really has no intent with them. Sometimes it results in them letting us know they want to sell or buy, which is great. But we're going after the referral. So, for in the morning, first thing we want to do is we want to prospect. Usually for a couple of hours. And a few of our mentors and coaches have usually set a benchmark of how many calls you want to make a day and how many connections you want to make in a day. So let's say you connect with 5 people and you talk about real estate and you have a conversation of at least 5 minutes. That's a pretty good day. Some realtors would probably say, I need to have 10 connections or 20 connections. I don't know off the top of my head exactly how many we search for, but I know our goal is to make 10 phone calls, 10 text messages, 10 emails to different people. So we're always prospecting. After we're done prospecting, what Stephanie will usually do is she'll start working on the clients who are actively searching for homes, who we already know we're working with them. We're their agents. We're trying to find them something. So then the next few hours are working on getting them on appointments. And when she's working on getting them on appointments, I'm in the field actually showing houses. So I will show homes anywhere from noon to about 7 p.m. And sometimes later, depending on the client's availability. Once we find a home, I'll make it back to the house and I will start writing the offers. So usually the day looks like wake up, start prospecting for a couple of hours. After we prospect for a couple of hours or make so many phone calls, and then we are connecting with our clients we're currently working with to get them on appointments. And then once we're done booking the appointments, we go to the appointment. I think the problem that a lot of agents have is they don't have structure in their business and they don't have a cadence. Like every morning I'm doing this or every day I'm doing this at this time, this at this time, and this at this time. They get into real estate because they say, oh, I want to be my own boss. Well, part of being your own boss is you have to create your own schedule and create your own structure. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have a successful business or a predictable business.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah.
And what does negotiating look like? I've never been on that side. I always just
So it varies, right? Like it's different. It's different from contract to contract because excuse me, I'm sorry. I keep coughing.
No, you're good.
It really depends on what your client needs. Okay. So let's say we have a buyer right now who we actually help quite a few VA buyers, veterans, and they're zero down.
Yeah.
They notoriously don't have a lot of cash on hand. So usually they need all their closing costs covered. So, before we show a house, sometimes we'll call the agent and let them know right out of the gate exactly what our client is looking for and what they need. And if the listing agent thinks that it's something that the seller is willing to help with, well, then we will go and show the property to them. Obviously, we disclose all of these things to our client.
Yeah.
So usually for us, we're not, we don't like the I'm a shark type of attitude with being an agent, right? Like we feel like, hey, there's a contract here that's going to be beneficial for the buyer and beneficial for the seller. Yeah. And if we can find out what that is, it's going to make for a lot better of an experience for everybody throughout the contract and to closing.
Yeah.
If one party feels like they're being slighted or they're being taken advantage of, I think it usually decreases the probability of the home making it to closing, and it creates a bad experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So negotiations differ.
Yeah.
Varies.
And then how do you deal with clients that are very picky, for lack of better words?
Yeah. It's like you have to have a lot of come to Jesus moments, right? Or aha moments of letting them know like, hey, what you're looking for, it may not exist.
Yeah.
Or, let's say you have a champagne taste on a beer budget. And just to be clear, people at all price points have champagne taste on a beer budget, right? You could be at a $200,000 price point or like at a $1.4 million price point, and your champagne is just different, right? Yeah. But it's still champagne and you can only buy the beer. So it's just different, and usually, one of our first coaches always told us, he said, you're always negotiating.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean like you're always negotiating with the listing agent on the other side. He means you're negotiating with your client all the time. So when you're talking to your client, you're negotiating. Yeah. You're negotiating on what you're going to show them. Yeah. You're negotiating on what they're going to accept. You're negotiating with a lender when you're talking about pre-approval. So you're always negotiating. Yeah. We took that to heart, and it's helped out in our career. So, whenever we have a client that's really picky, we usually don't tell them right out of the gate, hey, what you're looking for doesn't exist, because nobody wants to hear that. Yeah, we're going to turn them off. So what we'll say is like, okay, let us show you a few options that we think are close to what you're looking for. Okay. We'll go and show them those properties. And when they realize that what we kind of help them realize on their own that it doesn't exist. Because if we try to do it, it's not going to feel very good. You know? Yeah. So if we can help them realize that on their own, even better. So that's how we deal with clients who are unrealistic.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're kind of preventatively, having those conversations, right?
Yeah.
Because by the time you get to the negotiations, you've already, they know what their budget can afford. They know.
Exactly. Yeah. We're doing it a little bit at a time, right? So we're not, to give you like an example, if we had water in a pot, we're not going straight to boil, right? We're gradually warming it up, and they're kind of realizing these things on their own. Yeah.
And then how many people on a given transaction do you personally work with? Like as far as like loan officers and clients and other agents, and what does that look like?
So per each transaction, I will interact with everybody involved, and the parties involved are going to be obviously. So let's say we're the buyer's agent. I'm going to be involved with our client, the inspector, the appraiser, the lender, the loan processor, the title rep, the escrow officer. If we need a survey, I will be involved in the survey. So I interact with everybody throughout the transaction.
Yeah.
Now, I may not be on phone calls with everybody in the transaction, but I interact with them at one point or another. So I am in every phase of the sales cycle. So from the time they come in as a client to the time they close, I'm involved in every step of the process. Okay. My wife will help out at the very beginning So she helps out when a new inbound lead comes in, and she helps book the appointments and set them on the appointments.
Yeah.
I go to the appointments, I help them write the offers, and I see them from contract to close.
Okay.
So I have my hands in every aspect of the contract, and she's just on the front end.
Yeah.
So
cool.
throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how many different types of loans? I've heard of the ones I know are FHA, VA, conventional, and then cash.
Yeah.
Which isn't a loan, but it's a way to buy a house. What are all the different options?
Yeah. So, okay. So you said conventional USDA, or you said conventional VA, FHA, cash. There's also a USDA loan, which stands for United States Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
It's a 0 down loan. It's a little bit harder to qualify for. There are income limits.
Okay.
And you have to have a moderately good credit score. And it's technically only available in rural areas.
Okay.
There's also what's called a Texas Veterans Land Board loan, and it's provided by the state of Texas only for veterans.
Okay.
There's also what's called a DCSR loan, which is an investment loan based on rental income in the area. There's also hard money loans for home flippers, which is what we've used.
Oh.
Those are interest only payments, and you pay the home off when you sell the flip.
Oh, nice.
Let me see, what else is there? There's owner financing, right? There's a different seller financing. There are ITIN number loans. So for people that don't have social security numbers, they can give you a loan based off of an ITIN number. Yep.
Yeah. Have you ever done, when I was younger, I followed Dave Ramsey, and he was, anti-debt and all that.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a loan with someone without a credit score? I've heard they're out there.
Yeah, I can't remember if I have or haven't, but we've helped people get loans that have no proof of income.
No proof of income.
No proof of income. Yeah.
Wow.
We've also helped people get loans with horrible credit scores, and that's usually when they use like a down payment assistance program.
Yeah.
We've helped people get loans with no social security numbers.
Interesting.
Trying to think. Yeah. So with no credit score, I mean, technically no, but I think one of the loans that I just described would have worked in that scenario.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Interesting.
I'm trying to think. What other loan types have we used? I think that's it. And there's so many out there. To be honest, there's so many out there. And especially in today's climate, in today's market, where like conventional rates, or when I say conventional, I'm kind of using an umbrella term for an actual conventional mortgage, VA and FHA, because those are the three most popular.
Yeah.
Because the interest rates are still moderately high, and they're like in the mid 7% at the time that we're talking right now.
Yeah.
Because of that, there are a lot of other loan types that are becoming more popular.
Okay.
And so we're seeing a rise in that. I think, there's so many out there that there's always an option. What's going to happen when you're like, let's say, a less than ideal borrower, is you're end up going to finding a loan that has a really high interest rate or and a pretty big down payment.
Yeah.
Like 10% or higher.
Okay. Wow. That is high.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of facets to it. Right. And so going back to when I was saying like how we want to move our business over to where we're working with different organizations, like professional organizations, the knowledge that I have now in real estate, not only with real estate, but with loans, if somebody asked me these questions that you're asking me now, 7-8 years ago, I would have no answer. I would be like, I have no idea, But now that we've been in it and we've done it for over a decade, it's, we know the industry. Now, I know residential real estate. I don't really know farm and ranch, which I think farm and ranch is actually really cool. I don't know commercial. Commercial's okay too. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's okay. I don't know those things. I know residential real estate. So if you ask me about residential real estate, I've got you. If you ask me about commercial, you're talking to the wrong person. I don't know.
Do you ever keep track? So I started doing this when I started inspecting. I kept track of the smallest house I ever inspected, the biggest house, the least expensive, the most expensive. I kept track of those things. The oldest house, right? Do you ever keep track of stuff like that? Like,
no.
Okay.
No. And the reason being is because I realized very early on, at least for myself, and I'm only speaking for myself, that I would get hung up. like on price points, on clients.
Okay.
And I was really more concerned with just helping as many people as I could. And if I would get hung up on the price point or whatever, it would cause me to just focus more time on that person, transaction, whatever, that it was taking away from me just helping out more people.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's probably, so I will say this. We do track every one of our sales.
Yeah.
So I can look in one of our Excel spreadsheets or CRMs and I can tell you, okay, well, this was the lowest price house. This was the most expensive.
Yeah.
But off the top of my head, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I do know. So the largest sale, so Stephanie and I, our average home sale is close to the average like price point in San Antonio, right around $300,000. Yeah. That's where we live, right? There are some people that sell at significantly higher price points, and there are some people that sell at lower price point.
Yeah.
The highest home sale that we ever had almost was like 1.5, 1.6 million.
Oh, nice.
And it was a home in Cordillera Ranch, nice home. People were relocating from Arizona, cash purchasers, very nice couple.
Yeah.
I had negotiated from 1.6 to 1.4. So I had negotiated $200,000 off the price.
Yeah.
I had negotiated all the furniture, some of the lawn equipment, all of the pool equipment, valued at like, the sellers were like, oh, that's another $150,000 value. So I had negotiated all of those things as well, just for my clients to terminate the contract.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were negotiating for like a month, right? Negotiating the price. And then, the seller was an attorney. So every time we would like throw out some negotiations, like, he would like send back his own counter. It wasn't even through this listing agent. It was like his own counter with his own like legal language. And it's just like, bro, like, I get it. You're an attorney, but you know what I mean? Like you're not in the courtroom right now, just chill out, turn it off for a sec, And, so it took a month to negotiate all those terms just for them to terminate the contract.
Wow. And so the client has that ability to just walk away? Is there anything to protect the
seller? Yeah.
The agent?
The agent, I mean, yes and no. So there's several.
Or anyone involved.
So the answer is yes to all of your questions and no to all of your questions, right? So the contract itself usually has a few different termination provisions. And I want to say there's like anywhere from like 12 to like 13 of them in total.
Oh, wow.
And we usually try to build in at least anywhere from 5 to 6 termination provisions for our clients so that at any given point throughout the contract, they can terminate and receive a refund of their earnest money and not be liable or be on the hook to buy the home or create a liability for themselves.
Okay.
So when we go under contract, we always send out an email to our clients and say, okay, hey, look, here are the dates involved. Here are your termination provisions. If at any point you feel like you do not want to buy this house anymore, you need to let us know immediately. And we need to see if you have a termination provision available.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're either going to lose your earnest money or you're going to have to buy this house. In our career, only twice have ever had somebody say that they do not want to buy a house and they've already exceeded all of their termination provisions. They were both single men, and they were both like the day before closing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. They ended up buying the properties.
Yeah.
But because we told them, we said, hey, you guys, like you've had plenty of opportunity to terminate these contracts. And we ask you at every point, and you never expressed that you wanted to.
Yeah.
But the day before closing, you tell us you don't want to buy this anymore. Wow. Like, this is not a joke. This is serious. You know?
It's a contract.
Exactly. And so they bought the properties. They they're not very happy about it, but they did it. So, and granted, we didn't force them to. We just let them know what would happen if they didn't.
Yeah.
And it's up to you, right? Like, as long as you're okay living through whatever the repercussions or the consequences of your actions are. Sure, go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to your question. So the buyer, we usually have there's like 12 to 13 different provisions they can terminate in the contract.
Okay.
For the seller does have a few termination provisions as well. The protection for the seller is that if the buyer does not operate according to what I will say like confines of the contract, the seller is entitled to the earnest money. So if the buyer decides not to purchase the property and they don't have a termination provision to do so, the seller can either take the earnest money as liquid damages and release the buyer of all liability.
Yeah.
Or they could sue the buyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now for the agents, if the buyer's agent has an agreement with the buyer and they help them, they procure a property, they show them the property, they get them under contract, they make it the day before closing, and they choose not to purchase the property, To be completely transparent, I'm not 100% sure if the buyer's agent could pursue the buyer for compensation. I think that they can.
Yeah.
We've had a couple situations where a buyer or seller did not want to, I think it was a buyer did not want to pay us for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it was dumb. But we chose not to pursue it. Like for what? You know, it's more of a headache. So there are a few different provisions and protections, and there's, you know, they're all going to be written in between the agreements between the buyer and the seller, or the buyer and buyer's agent, and seller's agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's complex, right? And this is why earlier I was saying it's so important that if you decide to go into real estate and become a new agent or become an agent, it's so important to have a broker who's hands-on, who can answer these questions.
Yeah.
Because now, so more than ever, with the changes that have happened over the last year when dealing with compensation, it's really easy to write a contract in a manner that will exclude you from getting paid.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for you to write contracts that are going to create liabilities for yourself. And the worst thing you can do as an agent is try to interpret contracts. Either you know the contract or you don't.
Yeah.
Don't try to interpret it and practice law. Yeah. So you have to be careful.
And so are there like standard templates?
Yeah. Yeah. So the Texas Association of Realtors, they usually put out they promulgate different forms and contracts that we use on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's pretty much not forbidden, but you do not want to write up your own contract out of the blue.
Yeah.
You want to use the ones that they've put together because they've already been reviewed by attorneys.
And are you able to take away any of those?
No,
okay.
You're not supposed to.
Okay.
I mean, can you? I mean, I'm sure you can, again, right? But you're going to create a liability at your own risk. Exactly right. You could lose your license. You could be sued, or worse. Okay. You know? So I do not recommend it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Sure.
Have you ever heard? I had a client. I felt really bad. I had a client call us for an inspection. The next day, they had already paid for the inspection. We went over the report review. They liked the house. The next day, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna call you for another inspection pretty soon." I'm like, "What happened?" It was a great house. They were like, "Did you notice any mold or any moisture?" And I'm like, "No, I mean, I did the infrared. I double checked with my moisture meter. I didn't notice anything at the time of the inspection." They're like, "Yeah, we called to get insurance quotes, and some insurance companies would not cover the house, and others were like insanely expensive." Like, interesting. They were like, "Yeah, apparently there was some kind of flood in the house."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, "Did they not disclose that?" And they didn't disclose it.
Ooh.
Apparently I don't know what the situation was, but so they're like, "Yeah, so the next time we buy a house, before we sign any contracts, we're gonna call insurance companies."
Smart.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I mean, I've definitely seen sellers try to cover things up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That happens all the time. And that's why doing our own inspections is so important. And having a competent inspector do the inspections, obviously, because one, you can have a seller who is knowingly hiding something.
Yeah.
Or two, you can have a seller who has no idea what's going on in their property, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they just, exactly. Usually that's how they answer. I don't know. Yeah. Anytime every time we sell a house, we always tell our clients, disclose everything. If there's something that's wrong, disclose it and make it apparent that you're showing that you're making it obvious. I'll give you an example. Back in I think it was 2021, we helped a husband and wife who had a home to sell in Converse. And one of the bedrooms is an addition to the home they had. It's a slab on grade home.
Yeah.
And the addition, they had poured an additional piece of concrete and added an additional bedroom. Yeah. Over time, that piece of concrete separated, and there was a crack that was not exposed. It was covered under carpet, but the seller knew that there was carpet down there, or they knew that there was a crack and that it was separating. And they were concerned that it was going to be an issue. People were going to see it because obviously this foundation had cracked and separated.
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, should we just disclose it? Should we just cover it up? Like, what should we do?" And I told them, or my advice was to rip up the carpet and expose the crack.
Yeah.
And, just let people know, like, "Hey, this was an addition. It's cracked. It's separated. I want you to see it."
Yeah.
And so we exposed it. And then we had a structural engineer come out. And the structural engineer looked at the slab that was separated and he said, look, he's like, yes, it's separated and you have a crack, but it doesn't look like it's moving. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It looks like it's already done settling. So I don't advise doing anything additionally.
Okay.
So whenever we listed the home, and it was a very beautiful home, minus that crack, we provided the seller, not only the seller's disclosure, but we provided the engineer's report and we exposed the crack. And we let everybody know, made it super obvious that, hey, look at this crack. Here's the report. Everything's cool. Now you know. And we got multiple offers and the house sold for over asking price.
Oh, nice.
And in our advice, again, with clients is always not expose, but just inform and let everybody know what's going on with your home. Because the last thing we want is for you to sell your house and there's something that was hidden that you knowingly hit, and now you just created an issue for yourself.
For a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story that we helped a couple purchase a home a few months back, and they sold their house in the summer of last year, which was 2024. And they had, we met them and we actually did an interview, or we had a listing and presentation at their house.
Okay.
The amazing couple, super nice, very friendly. We love them.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we want to sell our house. We really like you guys. Can you come do a listing presentation? Let us know what you think it'll sell for. We said, yeah, absolutely. So we go to their house, lots of foundation issues, same type of issue that I was telling you about, where the room, and this was not an addition, but the room, the foundation had cracked and was separating. And this was one of the front bedrooms in the front of the home.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, okay, based on the things you're telling me, this is what I gave him a price that I think the home could sell for. But I also let them know you need to expose all of these things.
Yes.
And so they were referred another realtor from a family member. They talked to that realtor. And that realtor suggested to them a significantly higher price to sell their home than what I did.
Yeah.
But the realtor also told them to cover all that stuff up.
Wow.
And to hide it. He advised them to hide it.
Oh, wow.
And they did.
Yeah.
And they contracted the house at the price he'd wanted, which is like $40,000 more than I suggested.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of foundation work that needed to be done.
Yeah.
And they called us middle of the contract. And they said, hey, first, we want to apologize for not using you.
Yeah.
Two, we're under contract and the agent we have told us to not disclose this information and to hide it. And we don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
And we are scared that we're going to sell this house and we are going to be sued later on down the road. And so we essentially told him, we said, look, we're not your realtors. I can't give you advice. But from with not being a realtor, we told him, we suggest,
as a friend,
we suggest you do this.
Yeah.
Call his broker, let his broker know what's going on.
Yeah.
And send an email to all parties involved, letting them know what's going on and that you want to make known what's going, like what the issue is. And yes. And document that you're communicating these things.
Yeah.
They said, okay. They documented it. They sent out the emails. The home ended up closing.
Wow.
The buyers bought it for the price that they contracted.
Yeah.
And, even after the sale, you could tell that they were a little scared.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not an attorney. Obviously, I can't give you legal advice.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, it seems like you attempted to tell everybody what was going on.
Yeah.
Initially, you were told not to. You were advised not to.
Yeah.
You clearly regretted it and wanted to disclose. So I said, honestly, I don't know if there's anything else you could have done other than just terminating the contract.
Yeah.
So,
and
they ended up using us to help them buy the house, the next house.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I think you inspected their house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, we've run into all kinds of scenarios.
Yeah.
That's just one. I'm sure we've had other scenarios where sellers were hiding stuff that we exposed.
Yeah.
We usually find issues with sewer lines. We usually find issues with foundations.
Yeah.
Just lots of little things, and you, as you start to get more closings and clients under your belt, you start to know what to look for.
Yeah.
Having a good team of referral partners, like such as yourself, or lenders that not only when you go out to the property do you inspect it, but you kind of educate us when we're out there, so that whenever we're looking at homes, we have more insight and we provide more value to our clients, right? It's all about providing value. If I have any advice to give anybody who wants to become a realtor, is don't focus so much on just trying to sell a house. Focus on trying to provide value.
Yeah.
And what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up selling yourself. And then that client is going to say, okay, well, I'm going to use you. Like whatever house I buy or sell, I'm going to use you.
Or if I know anyone.
That's exactly it, right? Like, don't be so focused on the one sale. Focus more on the longevity of the relationship and multiple sales and closings over the life of your relationship with that person.
I think that's good general advice for any career.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, we always tell clients, like, we're not trying to get rich off one inspection.
No.
Like, we're just trying to help as much people. One thing I'm trying to do, going back to your story about the sellers hiding issues.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get current homeowners, we're pushing this year, to get a home inspection every 3 to 5 years. So typically codes change about every 3 years, electrical codes, plumbing codes, right? And so we're trying to get homeowners for 2 reasons: for the sake of education,
for sure,
and for the sake of I had a friend one time, we're driving, and he's just looking at all these streets. Real smart guy. And he's like, man, check it out. In 100 years, he's like, all of these, like, different people will be living in these houses.
Yeah.
Like no one, right?
It's crazy, right?
And so then just from that conversation years ago, now I'm like, what if we could, me and just inspectors, if there's an inspector out there that wants to steal this idea, like, do it.
Yeah.
If we could get current homeowners to inspect their home every 3 to 5 years, and then do, like,
whatever updates
minimal maintenance to keep it, in good condition, to where the foundation is not cracking, or, just maintenance that will keep the home, safe, livable, sustainable. Yeah. And then, 20, 30 years down the line, when it's sold, like, the next person is getting a good house, right? Like,
absolutely.
Because I know I know there's a lot of expenses when it comes to owning a home, like just cutting your grass and just watering the grass and just inside the home. There's a lot of things. But if this is my life's goal as an inspector, to get people to take care of their homes. Because it's going to be somebody else's in
eventually
30, 40 years.
Exactly
my
right.
kids are going to buy houses in, 10, 15 years. And I would love the idea of the person they're buying the house from took care of it.
Absolutely.
And then they take care of it for the next person. And then it's just, life is a cycle, right? Like, it's just.
And I think just to add to that too, is like, if you have somebody coming in every 3 to 40 years giving you an unbiased opinion on the things that need to be updated in your home or that are deficiencies, then if, let's say, you call an electrician to come out, well, you already know the things that are wrong, and maybe that decreases the electrician from overselling you something, right? So maybe you're saving money there, or maybe you're saving money whenever you get the HVAC system serviced or parts changed out. Like, I think it could definitely save you. Because I know for myself, anytime we call some sort of technician to come out to our house and do a service check or repair something, first thing I think is like, okay, what else are they going to try to sell me on? Right? Like, you come out for like a $200 job, but then they quote you $800. They try to sell you $800 worth of work, and you're just like, bro, like, just do what I'm, like. But if you have somebody else coming in, like yourself, and it's like, okay, well, here are the things that we recommend, and then you can go to the electrician and say, hey, look, here's his report. This is all I want you to do.
I want you to take care of these things.
Exactly. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. So we're working on it.
It's a good idea, man. I think it's all about just creating longevity, right? Longevity in your business. If this is truly the business you want. Like, I know in the last decade, because I've almost been in real estate for a decade. In the last decade I've been in real estate, I have seen the landscape of the market change significantly.
Yeah.
In 2020, 2021, I feel like I saw this huge influx of like this younger generation, and I feel like I'm still the young generation, kind of. Right? But I mean, like, so I'm 35 now.
Yeah.
And I feel like, so in 2020, I was 31.
Yeah.
But in 2020, I feel like I saw like these like 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds come into the industry, and which is fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But there was like a different like realtor vibe that they were providing, right? It's all like social media. It's a lot of like glamour, look at what I'm selling. Like it becomes more of like, you're not selling real estate. You're like being an influencer. And it honestly, some of the things I see online with what these realtors are doing, it's for lack of a better word, it's cringy, right? And it makes me, when I hear about things that have happened this past year with this compensation lawsuit, right? And people are complaining that realtors get paid too much. I absolutely think there's some realtors that get paid too much. For sure. But I also think that there are some realtors that don't get paid enough. And that's not everybody. And I think the majority are just compensated just like they should be. Right. But I think there's like this idea of what a realtor is, especially like if you look on Instagram and TikTok. I don't know if TikTok's going to be around in the next few days. But when you see what these realtors, like how realtors are portrayed, it does look like they're like, I think to myself, kind of like we were saying earlier, is like, what do you even do? Like, what other than making videos, what else do you do? Like, do you help anybody? No, there are some who make videos and help a lot of people. Props to them because they do a very good job. But I've just, I've seen the landscape of the industry change significantly. And I feel like there's a lot of people who came into the industry post 2020 because they thought to themselves, oh, I can make money really quickly and I can make decent compensation. When he said, I only need to sell a handful of homes and that's a pretty good income. What I think is going to happen because of this lawsuit that has come down the pipeline is I think compensation is going to decrease as a whole. And I think a lot of people are going to leave the industry. Yeah, that's what I think.
I think it sounds bad, but I think that's a positive.
I think so
too. For you to kind of weed out the people that aren't committed,
absolutely
aren't there to help people. They're just there to make a quick buck.
For sure.
Same thing with my industry is, I had talked to a friend. He's out in Eagle Pass, and we're talking about our price averages. And I'm like, well, mine's at about $500. And his is about $380. But then, like you just hear that, and you're like, man, like he charges a lot, and he charge, they're doing the same thing. But then you look at it, and he doesn't offer termite inspections. He doesn't offer foundation plotting. He doesn't offer infrared.
So you're getting less.
He doesn't offer sewer.
Significantly less service.
So I start telling him, I'm like, yeah, my average was about $350, $380 before I started offering all these additional services.
Right.
And I'm not just upselling. When a client calls, I'm telling them, okay, you're in Texas. Like, you should get a termite inspection, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The house, you don't know what's happening behind the walls. You should get an infrared scan.
Absolutely.
The sewer, there's a tree. The house is old. Even if it's brand new, you should scope the sewer, right? Let's just get a camera down there, see what's going on. Hopefully I don't find anything, right? But for a couple extra bucks, like it's just more information, right? And so I tell him, like, you're not only making more money, but you're helping the client gather more information about the home. For sure. Like, just make a better decision of like, should I buy this house?
I think that's good.
Yeah. And so we talk about that, right? And I told him when I first got my inspection, when my wife and I got married back in 2009, we bought a house. I didn't see the inspector. I didn't talk to the inspector. I don't know how long he took to do the inspection, but it was about 4 pages, the report.
Oh, wow.
Nothing but check marks. Everything was good. No problems.
You're
no
like,
pictures.
Oh, wow. You're like, this is great.
It was like, I'm like, man, I go to brand new houses now and I'm finding 30, 40 things.
How did you not find something
I'm like, how do you
wrong?
not find anything, right? And so, and back then we paid around $300.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, so to weed out people like that, that aren't offering, and again, it's not, to me, it's a win-win because the inspectors are making more money. But the clients are getting a more thorough inspection.
And they know what they're getting themselves into, right? Or not getting themselves into. Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that kind of like touches on what I was saying earlier. It's more about providing more service, right, to the client.
Value, like you said.
Providing more value. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a certain amount of reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. And it's like, if you're helping out this client and you know that your intent is really just to help them out, not so much that you're trying to upsell, they're going to notice that.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to refer you somebody else. And if they don't purchase that property, they're going to use you for the next one.
Yeah.
Or whenever they do, maybe they do buy that house. And then later on down the road, if they buy something else, they're going to call you anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's great, man. I think that's great.
Yeah, I like it. Do you have any other interesting stories?
Man, I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
Let me see. So I told you the one about this client who's they were trying to, they were hiding on things in the seller's disclosure.
Yeah.
Contracts that are always difficult are whenever there are multiple sellers involved. Anytime there's an estate, anytime there's a property that was passed down because of a death and there's no will in place.
Yeah.
That's problematic.
Yeah.
We've only had to deal with that a handful of times. I think we've had to deal with a client once where we were selling his house and he died on us whenever we were in the process of selling it. It was under contract. Yeah, that was crazy.
Wow.
You deal with all kinds of things, you know? And, you really, over the time that you're working with somebody, you really start to build a relationship with them and you kind of get to see into their life, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't really share this a whole lot, but it's, obviously we're compensated very well for what we do, but it really does feel like we're changing lives and we're helping people find a place to call home.
Yeah.
I know that there's a statistic out there that children that are raised in a house have a higher probability of going to college and having a better life. And,
interesting.
it's you're really providing like a basic necessity to people, right? Which is the need for shelter. I know for my wife and I, our goal and our mantra has always been, we're not concerned with selling any property. Our goal is just to educate our clients and let them make the decisions for themselves. We will obviously advise them in any way we can.
Yeah.
Obviously, we love getting paid, right? That's really nice. But more so than that, we love helping people. When you experience helping somebody buy a home or sell a home that they did not think that they were capable of buying or selling, the amount of gratitude they show is truly amazing. It's a great feeling. Yeah. Cool. That's what we look for.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. That's one thing I miss about teaching. I used to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And just coming home with the stories of the kids and the growth and
it's amazing, man. Because you're for a brief moment, you get to see behind the veil and look into somebody's life. And it's, we're all people. We all have unique stories. And it's truly amazing when somebody shares a little bit of their story and their life with you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Cool, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So you came in pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Now it's post-COVID. I know COVID was a crazy time for real estate. What changes have you seen?
Yeah.
What has real estate evolved at all?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of things that have changed in real estate. I would say the biggest change that has happened, or the biggest change we've seen so far, is the way compensation is disclosed. So in 2024, there was a big lawsuit with the National Association of Realtors. Yeah. Apparently, there was a large group of people saying that realtors were price fixing their compensation and that compensation is not negotiated. Compensation was always negotiated. It was never something that was that couldn't be negotiated. Now, if you have a realtor that is telling you, hey, I'm only going to accept X amount of money, and even if you try to negotiate with me, I'm not going to accept less. Well, that's that realtor. That doesn't mean every realtor is that way. The complaint was that compensation was fixed.
Yeah.
It wasn't. That's fine. Compensation is being disclosed differently now, which is completely fine because I said earlier, I think it's going to weed out a lot of people and a lot of people will leave the industry. And I think compensation as a whole is going to decrease, which is okay too, because we've seen the introduction of a lot of just artificial intelligence starting to be incorporated into different systems, which allows agents to transact at a higher volume.
Okay.
So although compensation may have decreased, I think agents are going to, as a whole, who are still in the industry, are going to end up transacting more volume, which you end up making just as much, if not more money.
Yeah.
Those are two big changes. The second big change that we've seen is a huge increase in interest rates. Interest rates are still around 7% right now. Home prices haven't dropped a whole lot. The housing market is somewhat stalling. Some people I've heard some agents say, oh my God, it's the best time to buy right now. Well, look, it's either it's the best time or not the best time. The only person that's going to determine that is you.
Yeah.
Right. Like interest rates can be at 13%, but if you're ready and it's time and you determine it's your time, now's the best time for you.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot more agents join the industry who are significantly younger, early 20s, mid 20s. And that's because I think the rise of social media has really portrayed this type of lifestyle that realtors have, right? Like there's this glamorous lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it can be glamorous, yeah, sure, but you're in the trenches a lot, you know. You're when you're negotiating contracts, like I think that contract I told you earlier, we negotiated $200,000 off the price. Like that was not a fun negotiation, you know. And we had a house in Terrell Hills that we helped the client purchase back in I think 2018, and the property was priced for $830,000, and it needed a ton of work. Yeah. Client was an investor, and we negotiated a couple $100,000 off the price of that one as well. Oh, wow. And I think when I presented the offer, the realtor on the other side pretty much yelled at me and cursed me out. Oh, wow. You know, like, and I'm like, bro, like, why are you so emotional? You know, like we're just talking business, right? Like, and you know, that part of the industry is not very glamorous. The other part of the industry that's not very glamorous is sometimes you have sellers, unfortunately, when you don't have a lot of showings because the market may just be what the market right now. There's an influx of inventory, so there's not a ton of showings. I've had sellers tell me that they don't think that we're really trying to sell their property. We don't think we're doing a good enough job because they haven't had any showings. And sometimes you can show them all the statistics on why their property is overpriced, but sometimes people, they just have an emotional attachment, or they don't listen to you for whatever reason, right? Because they have their own things going on in their life. I don't judge, you know, like whenever they tell me that I'm not doing a good job, and it hasn't happened often, but it has happened. I don't take it personally, or I try not to. Right? It's easy to. I try not to. I try to look at it just like, well, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me see if we can do something differently to make you satisfied and sell your property. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, right? Like whether you like me or not, we're trying to sell your property and make you the most money. That's it. So going back to your question, one of the things that have changed is biggest change are the compensation agreement, the way compensation is disclosed, AI, huge. Zillow is taking over real estate. Like don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Zillow at the end of the day is real estate. Wow. They have their hands in every pot. They are buying up tons of companies. I was talking to a friend or another realtor from Chicago the other day, and he was saying, he's like, for any realtor who stays in the industry over the next decade, we're probably going to end up all just working for Zillow. And that was a kind of a joke, but I think he's right. Like, I do think he's right. Zillow is real estate. End of the day.
And they're buying residential homes, right?
I don't know if they still are. They were for a while. I know they had put that on pause for a little bit. But I know that's part of their business, and they might still do it. So Zillow, we used to be part of what's called market-based pricing, where we could buy leads, and that's when we would spend like $10,000 a month, and we would be given a certain amount of leads to try to convert. Zillow has for the last few years has been weaning themselves off of that model. And instead of selling leads to realtors, they partner with a handful of realtors or brokerages or large teams in certain market areas. And they will give you the lead at no cost. But when you close that lead, they take a commission. Zillow makes significantly more money when they do that. Smart. And they now have Zillow Home Loans, and you have to transfer a certain amount of leads to Zillow Home Loans so they can close Zillow loans. They will also, I think they're in the process of doing Zillow Title. So they're going to be all encompassing. Wow. This is what Zillow wants.
Like a one-stop shop.
That's exactly right. Zillow wants you to come onto their app, schedule your showings, buy your house, close, do everything from the app. They don't want you to ever come off the app for any part of that. And the sooner they get to that, the sooner they own the market, right? So right now, if we go on the MLS, which is the multiple listing service, and that's where homes are for sale, we go to schedule a showing, we use a service called Showing Time. Zillow owns Showing Time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what you can do as a realtor or as an agent, or as, a buyer, you can go and you can look at a home for sale. You can go and schedule a showing. Zillow will automatically pair you with an agent who is available to show you that property. And in the same time, while pairing you with an agent, Zillow is scheduling your showing with the seller because they own they own showing time.
Yeah.
They just do it themselves.
Wow.
So by the time I accept the tour, the seller's accepting it, and I already have the appointment with the client.
Wow.
It's all in one-stop
and
shop.
You're in their ecosystem.
And you're in their ecosystem. So it's either you be part of Zillow or you don't.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then your business has a not a death sentence, but it has a time limit. Yeah.
Wow. Man. Well, I know, so a lot of times you hear, that these big corporations are bad and evil, right? But it's really just someone had an idea and they, start small.
That's exactly
and
right.
Then they just scaled, right?
That's exactly right. And so this is the other thing that people need to realize is that Zillow is not doing anything that the consumer doesn't want.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The consumer, who is the person buying the homes, they said Zillow is constantly asking them, what could we do differently? What can we improve? What do you want?
How can we make your life more convenient?
Exactly. Because if you make the consumer's life more convenient and you cater to what the consumer wants, who at the end of the day, it's the consumer who's paying all of our bills because they're the ones buying the homes.
Yeah.
If I do what they're asking, then I'm going to be able to continue running my business.
Yeah.
So Zillow is only doing what the consumer wants.
Yeah.
So, you see, and I hear agents, especially on Facebook and other like social media platforms, it's really like an echo chamber where agents complain about Zillow and they complain that, oh, well, the compensation agreements, or they're complaining about all of these things when at the end of the day, they don't realize this is what the consumer wants. So if you're not aligning with what the consumer wants, like you're limiting your business.
Yeah.
In what business can I tell the consumer, hey, consumer, you do what I want.
Yeah.
And then the consumer's going to be okay with it and keep giving you business? No, of course not. No, I'm going to go find someone who provides the services that I want provided to me. Yeah. And that's what Zillow's doing on a very large scale.
And it might be a product of, you mentioned earlier, younger agents coming in. We live now where when we grew up, the digital world, the internet was
very
like a room in your house, right? Like
true.
So with me growing up, if I wanted to play video games, I went to the living room.
Right.
And if no one's watching TV, I can play video games.
Right.
If I wanted to get on the computer, I go to the game room, and if no one's on the computer, I can get on the computer.
Absolutely.
This new generation, like the phone, like with the invention of the smartphone, Apple, everything is it's a TV.
Everything I want is right
it's
here.
A computer.
Absolutely.
It's my alarm clock. My son told me the other day. He has an alarm clock in his room. When they go to bed, we don't let them take their phones. We're like, no, you go to bed, you leave your phones right here. He goes, hey Dad, I want to start taking my phone to my room to use it as an alarm clock. I told him, you have an alarm clock. But he just wants to use his phone.
Right.
And I said, no, you're not going to do that. But yeah, it's everything. It is everything.
You're exactly right. And why, if we can do infinitely more things today on our phone, right? From ordering food, ordering Amazon, buying a car, why should we not be able to buy a house?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
you can buy cars on Amazon now. Did you see that?
I did not. No, but so, it only makes sense. It only makes sense. And either you're part of the change or you get left behind. Like that's it. Like don't be Blockbuster, right? Like don't be Sears. Don't be these other organizations that are like, no, I'm not going to cater. I'm not going to go the direction that obviously the consumer is asking for. Yeah. I'm going to stay doing what I've been doing. Okay, keep doing that. But then, in 10 years, you're not going to be around. That's fine. Yeah. So that's kind of what our outlook is. So Stephanie and I, we had kind of like our own real estate company for a little while, which was called Really Real Estate. We've since switched. The reason we made the switch, and this is like something we thought about for a long time, is because we know that Zillow has their hands in so many things in real estate. Yeah. And we wanted to be partnered with an organization that has a relationship with Zillow. And so we ended up switching to a brokerage that has that relationship.
Yeah.
So we know that Zillow has such a huge impact in real estate that we left the real estate company we had started 3 years ago to go and join another brokerage because we know that they have a relationship with Zillow.
Yeah.
Now, we still want to foster relationships with these other organizations like I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we want to do that.
Yeah.
But we also know that we need to be part of Zillow too.
Yeah. And you can do both. And it's important to do both. It's important to...
You're exactly right.
It's important to use... I think it's important to see AI and the digital and the internet, see these things as tools.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid of them.
To help your business and help the relationships that you're ultimately building.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so...
I think where people get hung up is whenever they're afraid to use it and they think it's going to put them out of business. If you have the mentality that AI is going to put you out of business, it's definitely going to put you out of business. You know what I mean? But if you have the mentality that it, like you just said, it's a tool that I can utilize that can help me capture more clients. Yeah, maybe I make a little bit, like I've said, maybe I'll make a little bit less per transaction. But if I can do more transactions and it gives me my time back, that's pretty great. You know, so if I make 3% on 7, so Stephanie and I usually sell anywhere from 60 to 70 homes a year. Yeah. And if I make a 3% commission on 60 homes, that's fine. But if I go down to 2% commission, but AI helps me sell 100 homes, I'm probably doing better.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay.
Yep. Work smarter and work harder.
Yeah. Do both.
My brother would say that.
Yeah.
Because they would tell him, work smart, not hard. He would say, work smart and work hard.
I like that. I like that a lot better.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah, because I think it's important I think that some of what the young agents will learn, in, a decade later, right? Yeah, is the old school stuff works.
It does
right?
work. It does work.
But it's also what the older agents need to understand is you've got to embrace technology. You've got to embrace change. You mentioned Blockbuster. I know Kodak has a similar story where they didn't go digital.
That's right. They
and
didn't.
Just,
they're out of business. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many of them, right? So we obviously think that we want to make sure that however the landscape of the industry is changing, whatever that looks like, we want to be there. We want to be on the forefront of the change. Yeah. Obviously, at some point, we're not going to be selling real estate. I don't know when that's going to happen, but we want to make sure that when that happens, it's because of something we decided, not because the industry decided it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask you about your son. Because I learned the lesson as a teacher. I used to take stuff home and grade. And my wife would help me grade. And then when we had my daughter, I'm like, I don't want to take stuff home.
Yeah.
And so I on purpose was like, I need to build a system to not take stuff home.
For sure.
What is something that a young agent, maybe they don't have a family, maybe they do have a family. What is something they can implement starting off that can kind of, lead them in that path to... Because at the beginning, you've got to work
all of it. Yeah, you got to do all of it. The first thing I implemented that helped us alleviate some of the time in our business was I got a transaction coordinator.
Okay.
I didn't do that. I didn't have a transaction coordinator for the first couple of years, and I think it was not something I did intentionally. It just happened that way.
Yeah.
If I had to go back, I would probably advise I wouldn't change anything because I think it's super important that an agent understand the contracts, understand what the contracts are saying in each paragraph, understand that if a buyer doesn't perform or a seller doesn't perform, what are the options the other party has? And you really only know those things if you're going into the contracts and reading them constantly.
Yeah.
So if you're writing offers, you're having to always go into the contracts. Now, once you understand the contracts, I think it's a wise idea to get a transaction coordinator who can alleviate that paperwork time. Because at the end of the day, a realtor, I don't feel like we're paper pushers, right? And that's just like writing contracts, what we're good at. And I guess it's not everybody, but at least what I feel like I'm good at when I think of a realtor, I think of someone who is showing property, identifying, defects of a property, the benefits of a property, what the investment benefits are, what the investment, I guess things you need to watch out for, what those look like. what an exit strategy looks like, educating the client about home ownership.
Yeah.
That's what I think the role of an agent is, being out in the field. It's not so much the paperwork.
Yeah.
So I would say as a new agent, after a handful of transactions, I would think about getting a transaction coordinator because that's going to alleviate a lot of your time.
Yeah.
A lot.
Okay.
That would be the first thing I would do. As you grow, you could possibly get like a showing agent, but I don't advise that right away. You have to have a decent amount of home sales and constant appointments before you get a showing agent.
Okay.
You could get an ISA, which is an inside sales agent. That person, their role is just to call prospect and try to book appointments for you. So there are several pieces that you can put into play. It really depends on what you want your business to look like, right? Do you want to manage a bunch of people? Do you want to manage showing agents, or do you want to be the sole agent? My wife and I have never had the intention of having a large team. We always wanted it to just be her, myself, maybe 2 or 3 other people, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to have to worry about if somebody else is doing their job or not.
Yeah.
I just want to live my life, get our contracts, help the people we help, and then, get to live our life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very
I hope
cool.
that helps.
No, yeah, that's good. That's good. What do you have any other advice to a brand new agent starting off? I just got my license. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Because you've given a lot of information already, but
again, if I had to, and I probably already said it, I'll say it again because I think this is the biggest takeaway. At least this was for me.
Yeah.
When I get hung up on trying to get a contract and put somebody under contract, I usually don't get contracts. When my goal becomes to get in front of as many people as possible and just talk about real estate in a manner that shows that I truly enjoy what I'm doing, I get contracts.
Nice.
So make sure that if this is the industry you're in, you love this industry.
Yeah.
Because the sales don't come quickly. Yes, you can start to stack them over time, but it takes time. And you have to talk to a lot of people and you have to be enthusiastic because at the end of the day, this is sales, right? And if I can give any advice on sales is that when you try to make a pressure sale, it usually doesn't work out, at least not for myself. When I try to make a sale very indirectly, it does work. So when you're in front of people, just express how much you enjoy what you're doing. Obviously make it known that you enjoy what you're doing. People will read that. Be genuine. People are going to see that. They're going to like that. People want to work with people that they like. So become a person that you like and you'll end up being somebody that other people like.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. I wanted to ask you specifically because I struggle with this. I struggle with routine, right?
Yeah.
So I turned 40 last August.
Oh, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. And I had the goal of like a health goal. Like I want to be more healthy, right? So I stopped drinking soda. I'm eating healthier, trying to exercise more consistently. What advice do you have to those that want to be consistent in that area? And I forgot the other question, but we'll talk about that first. Like this was the other question was what I don't know if you'll understand this. What unintended consequences of being consistent in that? What can you talk about?
Absolutely. So I would say for anything health related, find a goal that is maintainable, something that you can do on a daily basis, and find a reason you enjoy it.
Okay.
So I am active 5 to 7 days a week. I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because it puts me in a better headspace. It makes me feel like I've accomplished something. I'm a very big believer that it's important to set little goals and small goals that you can accomplish on a daily basis because that kind of elevates your mood. And when I do that, when I work out in the morning or even in the evening, it elevates my mood. And that's why I enjoy doing that. Working out, being consistent with your diet. It creates discipline in your life that then translates into your business. So an unintended consequence of being disciplined in your personal life is probably being disciplined in your business, which more than likely when you do the same things on a daily basis, you do the right things on a daily basis, eventually you're going to see the results, right? So if it's with your health, if you walk for 30 minutes every day, and if you eat on your diet every day, you're not going to see the results on day one. You're going to see the results in 30 days.
Yeah.
If you make 10 phone calls to 10 potential prospects 5 days a week, you're not going to see the result on day one. You're going to see the results in 30 days. Because over the course of the next 30 days, I guarantee you somebody's going to give you a referral or two.
Yeah.
You know? And so creating that habit over time, I think discipline and creating habits over time creates more freedom for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think the unintended consequence of being disciplined in your personal life and in your health is being disciplined in your business, which results in more profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm working on that.
It's a struggle, man. Like I still do it. Like, I think one of the only things in my life that I am disciplined with is my diet and my exercise.
Nice.
Because I'm not disciplined in my business, that's for sure. And I need to be better at it. You know, I know I need to make 10 phone calls a day. Do I do it? No.
Yeah.
No. And I need to. And I know, like, I already know that if I did, man, my business would be amazing.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I just don't.
Yeah. Well, you know what my struggle is, is, and this is gonna sound weird, but I stopped doing to-do lists.
Oh yeah.
Right. Because I tried to start doing to-do lists last year. But what happens was I started prioritizing work and things that create money over
good.
Like exercise, right? Because let's say I have a morning and it's like, okay, if I cold call or if I reach out to agents or if I post on my social media about inspections, that might generate income. Yeah. If I go to my garage and I work out,
you're not going to
like that doesn't generate income. So I'm like, well, this is more important. Yeah. Right? For sure. I know in my head that, like you said, like this is as important.
Absolutely.
But so I stopped doing to-do lists. Okay. I'm like, I'm not going to do to-do lists because I would see workout. I would even sometimes skip breakfast because I'm like, I gotta start working, right? I'm on my laptop and I'm doing stuff and I just have a lot of things on my mind. Yep. And so I would skip eating, I would skip exercising. I'm like, those things I can do later. Yeah. And then later never came. Yeah. And so now I have it's working, but now I'm like, okay, today I have like you said, today I have the goal of exercising. Yes. Yeah. And so whenever that happens, it happens, right? Like sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's before bed, sometimes it's in the middle of the afternoon. Yeah. But I like that you said creating those small goals, and instead of writing a list, I'm just like, okay, I want to work on my business and I want to work on my health. For sure. And so I'm going to do that today. And I don't schedule. Yeah. It works for me. It may not work for everyone, but I don't. It works for you. I don't schedule it, but I know like I have to work on my company and I have to work on myself. Absolutely. And they help each other. Right? Because this makes money for me to have a home and have the food that I want to buy. And then this helps me do so.
Yeah, it's about creating that balance, right? And you know what? Depending on who you talk to, some people will tell you the balance is good. Some people will tell you the balance is not good. Yeah. And you know, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It depends on what you want in your life. Yeah. I know for ourselves, the year that we had the most transactions was 2020, and I think we closed almost 90 home sales. Nice. That is a lot. Yeah. The year that we were the most unhealthy was 2020 because we ate junk food all the time because we were always working. We were working so late and we would go without eating, that we would just pick up junk food every night. We would still go to the gym, but we were eating crap. We weren't watching our diet. We weren't watching what we were drinking. Yeah. And we were so focused on just writing as many contracts as possible. Yeah. Since then, we've decided to prioritize our health, what we eat, what we drink. We always prepare our foods. So I eat like 5 to 6 meals a day. I actually have my lunchbox with me in the car. Nice. So that we're not going without eating and not making it so that we're so hungry, and then by the time we're done with work, we just have to pick something up, and we end up picking up junk.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about finding that balance that's happy for you, because what I've learned in my life, in my 35 years, right, is that money is not going to give you happiness. No amount of money is going to give you happiness. If you're not happy in your own body, it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Yeah.
So be happy in your body first, because that's where you live.
Yeah.
And then get the amount of money that you need to sustain that lifestyle.
Sustain that. Yep. Amen. Yeah. I like it. Are there things, I don't know, before kids or even now with your son, do y'all have cutoff times for work? Because I know it's pretty, like you said, as the clients sometimes dictate your schedule, but at the same time, like,
we don't have a cutoff time per se, but it usually ends up working out that like by 7 p.m., we're usually not working.
Okay.
It's usually done.
Yeah.
On a rare occasion, we are still working that late, but nothing is happening. There's nothing so important that at 7 p.m. it has to get done.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a multiple offer situation, or we're negotiating a contract and we have a deadline, but usually the deadlines are way before. Like if we're waiting that night at 7 p.m. to do something that has a deadline at 8, like that's our own fault. We shouldn't have done
you haven't been doing the work.
Exactly. So there's really nothing that late that is happening that needs our attention right then and there. So, we don't have like a hard cutoff, but it just so happens that about that time we stop working.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my wife has noticed that a lot of agents, kind of start their day a little later.
Yeah.
She turns on the phones at 8:00.
Yeah.
For our company. And then she has noticed a lot of agents, 10, 11.
That's
right?
when
like
they start their day. Yeah. I try to start my day at I try to work out in the morning, and I try to be home and ready for the day by 8 a.m.
Okay.
Because I know that at 8 a.m., that's when my phone starts getting blown up. Not blown up, but that's when emails start coming through if I need to answer them.
Yeah.
And I absolutely hate to be at the gym at like 8:30 in the morning or 9 in the morning, and I start getting emails from work because it pulls me out of my what I'm doing.
Your rhythm.
Right. So if I have not made it to the gym by 7 a.m. or 6:30, honestly, I'm not going.
Okay.
And I'm going to go in the evening because I know I'm not going to be ready for my day by 8.
Okay.
Now, I don't have to be dressed for my day by 8, but I have to be at the house at least like in work mode by 8 a.m. So by 8 a.m., we try to be in work mode.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. From 8, and I'll show houses to almost 8 p.m. So it's like a 12-hour window. It doesn't work out like that every day.
Yeah.
But that's usually the window that we work.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So I have 2 questions that I ask every guest.
Okay.
And I don't prepare them for it.
Okay.
The first one is how do you define success?
Yeah. Good question. So right now I define success as being able to spend time with my family, not necessarily decreasing my income, finding a way to make the same income that I have so that I can support the lifestyle that I want for me and my family. The lifestyle that I want for me and my family is for me to have time with them, unbothered time, for us to go on at least 3 or 4 vacations a year, for us to not have to worry about finances. I think, and not that we ever have, but I guess success is really having more time with my family and not having a decrease in lifestyle. Yeah. That's how I currently define success. If you asked me 5 years ago how I define success, it would probably be a certain amount of transactions, certain amount of income. Don't get me wrong. I know how much income our family needs in order for us to maintain the lifestyle that we have. Yeah. But really it's I guess the amount of time that we get to spend together.
So family. I like it. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. The other question is, what was told to you? What was the message that your parents kind of instilled in you when it came to the topic of career, like work? What was that like growing up?
You know what's crazy? My parents really never had the conversation of what career do you want, which is kind of interesting. They never had that conversation, nor did they ever have the conversation of like, you need to go to college. Yeah. What they did do is that they always instilled in me that it's important to not be lazy and it's important to always work.
Okay.
Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So my father had an industrial fabrication shop for like 40 something years, from like 1975 to I think till 2013, however much time that is.
Yeah.
And as a child, from the age of like 8 or 9, during any kind of summer break or school break, instead of me staying at home, he would take me to his shop.
Oh, nice.
And I would work. I would help out with the other welders or fabricators. I would clean the shop, pick up leads. I would move equipment. Like, I was always working.
Yeah.
So he instilled at a very young age the importance of working.
Yeah.
But he never told me that you need to pick a career field. He did always tell me. He always continued to reinforce that I was intelligent, that I had the capability, that I already had all the tools necessary to do anything that I wanted to.
Awesome.
So he instilled that idea in me at a very young age. So I always, from the day I was in middle school or younger, I always thought that there's nothing that I can't do if I don't try.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
So never had the college talk.
Yeah.
Never had the career path talk.
Yeah.
But always told me that work hard.
Yeah.
Be respectful. Be humble. Give respect. Earn respect. And just work hard.
That's good, man.
Mm-hmm.
What? So after high school, what did you do?
Yeah. So after high school, so I actually graduated high school when I was 16 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I graduated early because I went through a private school. I went to a private school and I went through the curriculums really quickly.
Yeah. Nice.
So I graduated when I was 16, and then I went into college at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I lived at one of the dorms. I had just turned 17 years old. I don't even know if that's allowed. Yeah. Because I was 17. I think you need to be 18 or older at least. Yeah. So I was 17 years old. My brother, who's 9 years older than I am, was in a fraternity. He'd already graduated college. So then I was like what they call a legacy. So I went into the fraternity right away. My first year at college, I didn't earn a single credit because all I was doing was, I earned credits in like females, you know what I mean? Like that was my only priority. That was it. And, I did pretty good. So I didn't earn a single credit in the first year. My parents were like, "Are you on drugs?" I was like, no, I'm just having a good time. And I wasn't. I've never been the type of person like to touch any substance. Yeah. I just was like, oh my God, I went to this private school my whole life where there was like a handful of girls, and now there's like all these females that are giving me all this attention. I couldn't handle it. So I didn't earn. I spent like $20,000 that year and didn't earn a single credit. Wow. Yep. So my parents were like, "All right, you got to come back home." So,
understandably.
Yeah. And so I went back home and I started working at a restaurant. My parents at this time lived west of Corpus Christi in a little town called Orange Grove. They had about like 40 acres out there, and they lived on a ranch that they had just built a home. Nice. In 2006, by the way. Okay. So from there, they're like, "Hey, there's this restaurant in this town called Alice. Maybe you go get a job there for the time being to figure out what you want to do." Okay. Yeah. So I went and got a job at the restaurant, and was a hard worker, right? I've never been a hard worker. Yeah. So I work really hard. I'm working there. They love me. You know, I mean, as a 18-year-old waiter, I was making decent money. Yeah. And the owner's son is like, "Hey, I want to open up," who's like 4 years older than me. His name is Alex. He's like, "Hey, I want to open up a restaurant in Corpus. Like, we should open one together." And so we start tossing around the idea, and we borrowed $15,000. We opened up a little restaurant in Corpus Christi, Texas in 2008. Yeah. And we staffed the restaurant. He and I were the cooks. His father helped us, and we did okay, I guess. I mean, I was 18 years old. I guess I did okay running a restaurant, and he was 22. But I quickly realized that business was not the lifestyle that I wanted. Okay. And I was working there 6 days a week, about 14 hours a day at 18 years old. And during my lunch break, which was like around 2 p.m., he and I would go to Starbucks, and we would just drink like a coffee for like an hour and then go back to work. Yeah. And that's where I met Stephanie. She was working at Starbucks. Yeah. And this was in 2008 or 2009. I think 2009 now. And so when I met Stephanie, I'm like, man, this girl's amazing. I'm like, I would love a future with her, but I don't know if being in this business and in this industry is going to allow me to have the future that I want with her, because I felt like it was a toxic industry.
Okay.
The restaurant industry is very toxic.
Yeah.
High turnaround, lots of attitude, lots of people, just not a good place to be.
Okay.
And so I kind of sold my half of the business to him, which was really worth nothing. I think he gave me like $10,000. Yeah, you can have it. And so from there, Stephanie, and I was like 19 now, or 20, I don't know.
Yeah.
Started working at Starbucks as like an assistant manager. And then I was also working at my dad's fabrication shop during the day, managing at night at Starbucks. So juggling 2 jobs. Did that for a couple of years. Then Stephanie and I decided, now we need to go back to school. And now, like 4 years later, I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready now. And I think I have like the discipline now. Now I'm mentally ready to do it. And started flying through it just like I did like in high school. Like the work comes in, I just knock it out. Like whenever I decide I'm going to do something, I do it really quickly. It's just, it takes me a while to decide that I want to do something. I have to really want it. Otherwise, you can't force me to do anything. Started getting through it. It was midway through almost getting my bachelor's degree that we decided to move to San Antonio. And then when we moved to San Antonio, that's when I realized, I'm like, oh man, like I don't really see a career path with this degree. Like, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to get a degree and then go make like $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year? Like, that's nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay. I don't want to sound pretentious, but I was like, that money is not going to give me the life that I want by any means. So I'm like, as I'm going to school, I'm like, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? And that's when the home flipping idea came across my radar. And that's how I made that transition. So I never finished college. Because I was like at 3/4 of the way through, and I'm like, this is going to do nothing for me. It's not, I do think college is really good for a lot of people. If I could go back and change anything, and if I didn't go into real estate, and I wanted like a career path, I might go into the medical field, because now that we had our son, I was exposed to the medical field a little bit more in depth, and I got to see some other things. I'm like, oh, you know what? I could do that. So anyway, I forgot what question you asked me. But what did I do after school?
Right after high school. And so did you applied at the Starbucks Stephanie was working at?
Not at that one. I applied at a different one, and they gave me the job.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the managers there, and even Stephanie, they were like, you made it from like entry level to management faster than anybody has ever made it. Like you just, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because whenever I put my mind to something, I can do it very quickly and very efficiently. The problem is it takes a long time for me to decide that I want to do something. And I've had accountability coaches that try to hold me accountable, even in real estate. And like I told my mentor right now, I was joking with her, but I was also very serious. She's like, well, do you want to hold me accountable? I said, no, I don't want you to try to hold me accountable, because if you try to hold me accountable, I will find ways to not be accountable that seem very valid. And I'm going to convince you that I don't need it, And I'm like, well, that's probably why I'm a decent negotiator whenever it comes to real estate, because I'm very good at getting people to see things from my perspective. So
Very cool. Well, I've learned that as a dad, right? It is like my kids are gonna be who they're gonna be. Right? And I'm just here to support their dreams and their aspirations. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And
you have 3 kids or 4 kids?
4.
Wow.
I have 4 kids, and I mean, honestly, the way I see myself is obviously to prepare them for life.
For sure.
And there is times where I hold them accountable, and there are consequences when they don't have self-control. Like I step in.
That's good.
But also balancing that with like they are their own person. Right. And they're going to make their own decisions.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you've got to let them make those decisions, and you've got to let them hurt, and you got to let them fall and fail and learn. Because like you said, right, like I can teach them everything I know, but I'm a different person.
For sure.
I grew up in a different time.
For sure.
In a different situation. Like there's things that I do teach them that are just life principles and, values. But outside of that, it's like you're you.
Yeah.
Like you live your life, make your decisions. And then all with, like you mentioned earlier, like what do you want?
Yeah.
Right? Like if you want to go to college, my only advice, right? I'm going to have advice,
For sure.
right? I'm not going to tell you don't go to college or you have to go to college.
Absolutely.
It's okay. Well, try to do it with,
have a plan at least.
Minimal debt.
Yeah.
And then study something that you need that degree to do that career.
Sure.
Engineering, architecture.
Absolutely.
Right? Don't study something where you're not going to use it or.
That's exactly what I was saying earlier. Like I was getting a business degree and it's just so very general, right? Like, do you really need it? If you go into, like you said, engineering or biochemistry or medical, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Computer science. I don't even know if you need a computer science degree anymore, there's do something that is needed, don't do like philosophy.
Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money.
Literature.
Yeah.
You're like, it's just a waste of money. I mean, it's nice to know, but I mean, you're going to get a good job. I don't doubt it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Cause that's what, and I'm still learning just like you are. And
always.
To me, work is to fund your lifestyle.
That's all it is.
Right. That's all it is. And
just to fund your lifestyle.
Yeah. And so some people, need and want to make a lot of money. Other people are like, you know what? I'm okay with this income and this time freedom and everyone success. And that's why it was actually my wife's idea, but her idea was at the very end, ask everyone the same question.
It's good.
So I came up with those two questions, right? Because the other thing that happens or that I used to do was I used to take a snapshot of young adults and or teenagers like that I knew. And I'm like, man, they're not doing anything. Like what,
right.
They're just wasting life, right? And then I grow up and I'm like, man, now they have a family and kids, a good job. Like they're a good person, right?
Yeah, right.
And so that's why I ask these questions, right? Because I'm like, it's important to like you, right? Like you go to school and you didn't earn any credits, and then you go back and you start a restaurant, and then you go to college and you quit it, and if someone took a snapshot of your life, they're like, what is Joshua doing with his life, right?
Right, yeah.
But now you're 35, you have a family, successful, real estate agent. It's just. I
learned differently.
Yeah.
Thing, because
it's your path, right?
Exactly.
And it's no one can say this is right, this is wrong. Don't do this. That's a waste of time. Like,
right.
You can't.
You can't say that because you're exactly right. It's their path. It's their life.
Yeah. And so, I appreciate you coming on and sharing
thank you for having me.
Your knowledge and your expertise.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. And then, agents out there that are learning, I'm sure they're going to have a lot. I did have this last question. Sorry, last question.
Sure.
In your line of work, are agents willing to help other agents?
Every agent I've come across has been willing to help. There has not been one that was like, no, I don't want to help you.
Yeah,
and if they were like that, if they had that intent, they didn't make it known.
Okay.
Everybody, in my experience, has been an open book and willing to help.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cool,
That's good, man. That's
Thank
important.
you for having me, Lewis.
Yeah, of course, man.
I appreciate it.
I learned a lot. And and then if you ever transition out of real estate, we'll have you back.
That sounds good.
We'll talk about your other line of work.
You got it.
Cool, man. Well, let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning into my line of work. I hope today's video inspired you to find the work you love. If there's a career you're curious about, drop it in the comments. We'd love to feature it. And hasta la próxima. Cool.
Thank you.